know the answer.
So just to finish on
We know the
passengers,
answer.
has there been any push for an extension of the operating date, 2020 out to 21? Has anybody put that up?
I'm not aware of that, Senator. It may have been put forward to Home Affairs, but I'd have to check.
You're the policy man, aviation industry
Sorry,
policy.
Senator, as we've explained, it's a matter for Home Affairs, so if people are asking for an extension,
No
they'll
one
be putting
spoke
it to
to you
Home
about
Affairs.
pushing it out to 2021, Ms Pitt.
It requires a legislative instrument which hasn't...
What I'm saying is that any formal request
I'll
would have to go to the Department of Home Affairs rather
When
than
did the
this
US bring it
portfolio.
in terms of freight?
I understand it's a longer lead time than what we've introduced in Australia, but again, that's a matter for the Home Affairs portfolio.
So you don't want to say the word 2021. That's what
sorry,
the United
I didn't
States...
recall what the...
Ms Spence has been clear. It's a matter for the Home Affairs
2021 in the United
Department.
States and Hong Kong for freight, is that correct?
Senator, as I said, this is a matter for the Home Affairs portfolio and
Okay,
questions
can
will
we
be
go to air
directed
freight?
them.
How are the new rules going to be applied there?
Sen-
And what do freight companies and regional airports need to do to comply?
Senator, all aviation security matters should be questions should be directed to the
Jolly
Department
good.
of Home Affairs.
So does the department believe there is a capacity or capability within the industry for the cargo volumes to be screened with the current screening equipment and also meet overnight freight schedules? None of your business again? Is that what you're
Sorry,
going to tell us?
Senator, it's not when I'm genuinely not trying to be difficult here, but I do not want to answer a question on behalf of another portfolio. So,
But Senator Gallagher is talking about operational. I mean, you're the department that deals with these airports, that is consulting airports and airlines about the implementation of these rules. Your department must have a view on whether there is capacity within the industry for the cargo volumes to be screened with the current screening equipment and also meet overnight flight schedules. That's not a policy question.
Senator, can I just... I mean, the Department of Home Affairs runs its own consultation with the airports and airline industry. They have a series of forums that have been set up since about 2005, so they've been running for about 14 or 15 years. They have a very good regular set of contacts with the industry, and I'm sure the industry will speak to the Department of Home Affairs about their concerns around implementation dates.
Well then why, and this is really a rhetorical question, does this parliament get a visitation from CEOs of very large businesses saying this? It's a $500 million business. One screening machine is $41 million. That screening machine will do 2,000 parcels an hour. My screening, this is the CEO, my screening requirement is 30,000. If I were to buy those $40 million machines I require, they wouldn't physically fit in the infrastructure that I have at an airport. And we're talking about Melbourne Airport. So if everything is going so fantastically well, why does the CEO of a company with 20,000 employees in Australia come to the Parliament and knock on the doors of any senator that will listen and explain this? And to add insult to injury, about 30% of that freight is critical vaccines, medical supplies, going to regional country areas.
I'm sorry,
where
Senator.
people rely on them.
I'm sorry, Senator, but the implementation of the rules that you're talking about are a matter for the Home Affairs portfolio.
And you run the airports.
No, we
They
don't.
don't
No,
run
we
this-
don't
No,
run
we
the
don't
airports.
run the airports.
No, they don't run the policy decision about putting screening
They
in a
also
place.
don't do the screening.
Anyway,
So the Department of Transport, which is responsible for a whole range of activities regarding airports, doesn't have a position on whether there is capacity within the industry for these new rules to work in relation to freight.
I'm simply...
I think we've had the same question in various
Well, I'm
ways. I
pretty
don't
staggered that,
dis-
that this department is just trying to deflect everything to Home Affairs.
I don't doubt, from what I've seen, that a question and answer is going to be any different if you play it out for another 7 minutes.
Sorry?
It's not going to be any different. Like, you might be surprised by the answer, but the
So
answer remains the same,
it's completely
that it is an
okay.
issue for Home Affairs.
So it's completely okay for Home Affairs and Minister Dutton with his latest power trip to just get around and dictate terms for what's going to happen in airports, and this department doesn't have a position?
Well, Senator Watt, obviously, you know, the way you characterise this particular process is not how I would characterise it, and I'm sure the department officials would.
okay. So if we go to the 60,000 customers who will be on a register and a known consignor scheme, is that anything you have any input into? Is that going to be Home Affairs running that?
The consignor scheme is the Department of Home Affairs around the cargo.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Department of Home Affairs runs all transport security, maritime and aviation,
So the
including cargo.
60,000 customers in Australia who regularly consign air freight, the consigner scheme will be run by Home Affairs?
Yes, Senator.
Yes, Senator.
Who's going to stump up the $50 million that's... that's the earlier... you've answered that, haven't you? Who's stumping that 50? Is that you
That's
or is that...
Affairs.
Home Affairs.
Home
Senator.
Affairs
Home
Department.
Affairs? So, you've had no contact from the freight operators? Is that the evidence you're giving?
No, Senator, just maybe to put things in a little bit more context, we have a role in the department in the aviation airports area of assessing major development programs or projects that the airports put forward. So if an airport puts forward a particular development, the government has a role in assessing that, and the minister will make a determination as to whether to approve it. We also review and for the minister provide advice around airport master planning, which is a 5-yearly process. That's for the 22 federally leased airports. We have no federal jurisdiction over the non-federal airports. So the way that we get involved is really through the major development programs, and airports may choose to come forward with new proposals around handling terminal upgrades, terminal expansions that will have regard to the future security needs. But I do know from speaking with airports that they are also speaking with the Department of Home Affairs, including showing senior officials how and where the new security equipment would
I want to be
fit.
very specific. You've had no input from the freight industry about this seemingly impossible problem of fitting so many screeners in that are not physically possible to do the legislative task that's been given them.
Senator, in engagement with some freight operators, they have raised the issue with us, but they understand that this is a matter for Home Affairs, and they've
So
had their
which
major...
freight operators have raised it with you, Ms Spence? Is that...
I'd say Toll raised it with us quite recently.
Okay. And did you say go and see Mr Dutton?
They understood.
They already knew to see. They explained. They were talking to us about some of the issues that they thought they might face, but they understood the Department of Home Affairs as their primary contact for the security screening.
So what happens if the 1st of June 2020 comes along and the infrastructure is not able to do the legislative task? Does the freight stop? Is that basically what happens? You just don't put it on a plane?
I think you're assuming that the legislation has passed.
Well, it's there. You haven't, you've said 2020. So if the infrastructure is not in place to screen by 2020, does your department have a view on what happens next?
Sorry, Senator, I don't think we're in a position to speculate on what will or won't happen.
Senator Gallacher, do you
Well,
mind
I'm
if
not
we
sure.
go to...
So we're not.
Senator Gallagher, you make a big assumption.
No, can we just
Seriously.
Well, I'm
pass
making a
the
big
question
assumption.
around?
Your
Not
policy,
passed
it's
yet.
your
Enacted on the
government
20th.
policy.
Can we just pass the
2020,
question around for a
the
second,
freight
please?
doesn't go, people in regional Australia don't get their medicine. That's what can happen.
Senator, we're not regulating the freight industry in our portfolio. The Department of Home Affairs are responsible for the regulations and compliance on the security side. It'll be up to them and their minister and the government to determine if industry is unable to comply by that date, what the alternatives would look like.
All right, we'll come back to you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Davey?